Good evening, Megasa and Libin. Today we are going to discuss both unit number 6 and 7. We will try to complete the course today by two sessions. So the session, this session is going to be uh, unit 6. We are going to discuss about ethics in qualitative and mixed method. Ethics are common at any type of research, but in qualitative it is more important, because you are dealing people more close than quantitative. So we are going to see what is ethics in terms of research, how much it is important, in what level we can able to practice, especially in qualitative and mixed research context. What I'm expecting from you today, especially for this session, uh, at the end of the session, you need to demonstrate awareness and the meaning of ethics in research. You should understand the basic understanding about ethics in terms of research. I hope you can able to demonstrate. Then you can also demonstrate the awareness about why the research is need uh, ethics, why the researcher need to follow the ethics. That's what the second expectation. Third one, you can able to explain the ethical issues involved in research, respondent as well as subject, what kind of decisions we need to take when we are doing in research in ethics. um, then you need to identify basic principles of, that is very important, you need to identify the basic principles of ethics. uh, that's a more important thing. If you are understanding the importance, then you need to know how to practice, what are all the basic principles you need to understand. That is very important. So before going in detail, we need to understand what is ethics. Do you have any idea about ethics? Do you have any idea about ethics, Megasa?
Just ethics means that is just to be conducted before the start of our study.
Uh-huh.
It's just like agreement with our respondents and the
Uh-huh.
concerned.
Do you face
Just
any ethical dilemma in your studies?
I don't face.
What do you mean by dilemma?
Just ethical problem.
Ah,
I think so. Ethical problem.
okay. Okay, thank you. Uh, so the basically ethics means the study of how people ought to act in order to be moral. How people supposed to act in terms of moral ground. Moral ground means there is no finding factor, but you supposed to follow what your mind is saying, or what your ethics is saying. So how people are uh, act in certain situations based on their morals. Morals is a guiding principles each and every people are having. So the moral is the one supposed to guide us to go in a right path, or the path is going to be decided by us. Moral is the one who guide. So moral code that guides the contact of a group of professionals. The moral codes, see, the moral code or ethical code, these things, there is it's a document, but it's not a legal one, but it's supposed to be followed by certain professionals. If it is in a moral code that guides the contact of a particular group of people, those who are involved in particular profession. For example, the medical doctors, they are having their own moral codes. If you are not following that moral code, then you are not a professional. So a moral code that guides the contact of a group of professionals. It's an ideal statement, or it's an a guiding principles. Moral code is an a guiding principle to decide the contact of a group of professionals. So ethics include the concerns. Ethics, you have a moral code. How to practice that one? Ethics, it includes a concern, dilemma, and conflict that arise over proper way of conducting research. Maybe, in simple term, how to contact or how to begin the interview. That one, if you are straight away starting your interview, it's not a right way. You need to explain what is the purpose of your research. What is the role the respondent is going to play, how the data is going to be secured, or how the data is going to be used. If you are giving advanced informations or more information to satisfy the client, then there is no issue. You can able to go with your research. So certain issues, the concerns of the respondent, the dilemmas and conflict, if it comes out of your research, if it comes out of your research, if you are clarifying that one, that is the right way to begin your research. For begin your research in a right way, ethics will help us. Ethics will help us. How to conduct research? There are ethical principles we need to follow. If you are following that one, we can able to overcome the dilemmas or conflict. If it will come in future, it can be overcome by through our ethical principles. So before going to see ethical principles in research, we need to understand what is ethics. So ethics helps to define what is or is not legitimate to do, or what moral research procedure involves. Ethics can help us. It can help us to define what is not to legitimate, what we should not do. So ethics will help us to understand what is or what should not be do. What we supposed to do, what we should not do. It will say ethics means, in simple term we can say what is right, what is wrong. So you can able to understand even in your introduction to social work. I hope you studied the ethics. So ethics means what is right, what is wrong. If we can able to classify, or we can able to differentiate of ourselves what is right and what is not right, or what is wrong. If you are able to define, then it is you are following ethical principles. In terms of research, what moral research procedure supposed to involve? There are procedure we need to follow in research, that that is going to be a moral thing. So many ethical issues ask to balance. There are two values. Many ethical principles ask to follow. There are two values. One is how to persuade of knowledge, how to derive knowledge, or how to persuade of knowledge, and the rights of the research participants or others in the society. So how to generate the knowledge or how to persuade the knowledge is one domain or one value, and also to practice rights of the research participants or others in the society. These two values are very much important in ethical questions. When you are doing an research. So two things. One is how to generate your knowledge or how to persuade your knowledge. Second one, right of research participants or others in the society. So research ethics means, in clear definitions, research ethics deals primarily with the interaction between researcher and the people they study. So research ethics means it primarily with the interaction between the researcher and the people of the study. So the interaction between researcher and the respondent. How to do the interaction between researcher and the respondent in a ethical way. That is called research ethics. There is another ethics also there, that is called professional ethics. Uh, Professional ethics added some value to the research ethics. So professional ethics deals with the additional issues such as collaborative relationship among the researcher, mentoring the relationship, intellectual property, fabrication of data, and plagiarisms, among other things. So, professional ethics also going to add to the research ethics. It also talking about the collaborative. Wait, there are two people are waiting.
Okay.
Liban is coming again and again. Is coming from two IDs. So professional ethics, it deals with the additional issues such as collaborative relationship among the researchers. For example, if you are doing a research as a first author and second author, what is the role between first author and the second author? So how you are collaborating each other? Maybe you are the principal investigator, someone is your assistant investigator. What is your relationship between both of you in a research? So that professional ethics, it deals with the other additional issues in research such as collaborative relationship among researcher, mentoring the relationships, intellectual property rights, fabrication of data, and plagiarism, among other things, can be dealt with the professional ethics. So there are ethical guidelines in qualitative research. When you are looking at the history or the history and development of international research ethical guideline, so the international research ethical, how the international research ethical guidelines came in strongly, because when you are looking at the history of ethical guidelines, you can able to understand the importance of research ethics, because previously there is a strong reflective of abuse and mistakes made in course of biomedical and public health research, especially when you are looking at 1970s and 1990s, even when biomedical industries are got prominent. That time we received so many stories, we received so many abuses, because when you are go to hospitals for some other test, but people are taking samples from you without informing the patient. People are taking samples without informing. The clinical trials were run to the patients, especially in third world countries. Most of the pharmaceutical industries from first world countries, they are doing their clinical trials in third world countries. Third world countries, people are not asking questions, or people are not aware about the trials, so they can take samples without informing the researcher, the participants. Their samples were used for the other research purposes. That kind of abuse and mistakes made in biomedical and public health researches, that's one of the biggest area. Many third world country people were abused. So to address that issue, the international research ethical guidelines were developed very strongly to condemn this kind of practices. That is the background. The ethical guidelines came into practice. So this type of abusive inquiries research also practiced in some qualitative researcher to conclude that their research is unlikely benefiting from such guidance. Uh, the the in that is why a strong ethical guidelines were came into practice. But the qualitative researcher, they were talking about, they are thinking that we are not doing any human samples, we are not collecting blood samples, we are not collecting the human body particles. So there is no issue of following ethical guidelines. That is the way we perceive. We as a qualitative researcher, we thought that we never collect any human samples, so there is no don't worry about ethical guidelines, because we are not involved in collection of any human samples. That's a perspective many people are having in qualitative research also. So this leads to some qualitative researcher to conclude that their research is unlikely to benefiting from such kind of guidance, or even that they are not at risk of perpetrating abuse or making mistakes to the real consequence of the people they study. So the qualitative researcher thinking that we are not harming people, we are not abusing people, but it happened. Even if you are not if you are not collecting human samples, but we are interacting with the people. In our interactions, In our interactions also, we are doing abuse. We are abusing people. We are making mistakes. We are making mistakes in terms of putting questions. So it is very much important. The ethical guidelines are very much important for either in human samples or in the interaction between two different individuals. It will happen. So conversely, biomedical and public health research who use qualitative approach without having benefiting the formal training in the social sciences may attempt to rigidly enforce bioethical practice without considering whether they are appropriate for qualitative research or not. But it is not only for the ethical guidelines are not only for biomedical research or public health research, it also applies to qualitative research because we are also dealing with the human beings through our interactions. So the ethical guidelines in even in social science research, ethical guidelines are very much important. That before, if you are involved in research, you need to undergo formal training. In social science also, it encourages to involve formal training in ethical guidelines. That is appropriate for anybody involved in qualitative research. It is appropriate. So going through the formal training is very much important, not only for biomedical researcher or public health researcher. It is must for quality social science researchers also, especially for those who are involved in qualitative study. It is very much important. So the standard for research ethics, it will help us. It helps to ensure that the researcher to trust established between researcher and study participants. If you have formal training or if you are well versed, conversant with research ethics, you can able to make positive impact to your research participants. So the standard guidelines will make standard guidelines of ethical guidelines will create trust between researcher and study participants. It will generate or it will create. Whenever we conduct research on people, the well-being of research participants must be our top priority. So whenever you are involved in a research, your first and foremost objective is to the well-being of your researcher. That is why we need to give assurance the data is not going to be used any other purpose. It is only for the purpose of doing research. The data is not going to be given to anybody. That is very much important. That is the topmost priority for any kind of research. Either it is human samples or it may be a interaction between two individuals, anything. So create will be the topmost priority is to uh, safeguarding the well-being of research participants in our. It is our topmost priority. The research question is always the secondary important, but most of the time, in practical sense, most of the time we wanted to get answer from the people. We are not conscious about their ethics. We are not ready to follow the ethics. That's a pathetic conditions. That's the pathetic conditions we are doing it in research. So our topmost priority is supposed to taking care of the research participants. Research questions going to be the secondary preference. Even if you are not able to get answer today, maybe you can approach tomorrow. Maybe you change your approach, you can get answer. But abusing the participant, we should not do. So the ethical principles try to safeguard the participants. Should not be abused. Should not be mistakes should not happen in terms of research. So there are basic principles. There are three core principles. It's originally articulated in the Bellamont report. Bellamont report is the first report which talking about universally accepted basic research ethical guidelines. The Bellamont report, which talking about ethical guidelines, which was accepted universally. It mentioning there are three important and core principles were mentioned in the Bellamont report. So respect for persons, that's the foremost core principle. Respect for person requires a commitment to ensure the autonomy of research participants, and where the autonomy may be diminished, to protect the people from exploitation of their vulnerability. So you need to respect the people who are participating in your research. So you need to your commitment to ensure the autonomy of the research participants. Autonomy means you are asking some questions, but people, this question, they don't want to answer, you should allow them to not to answer. Don't enforce them, don't force them to answer. So their autonomy is very much important. So respect for person, it requires a commitment to ensure autonomy of research participants, where if the autonomy of the research participants is diminished, you need to protect people from exploitation of their vulnerability. You are the one responsible for protecting the people, protecting their autonomy. You need to make sure research participants autonomy must be respected. Then the beneficency require a commitment. Beneficency require a commitment to minimize the risk associated with research, including psychological and social risks, and maximize the benefits that accrue to the research participants. If you are involved in a research, you need to commit yourself to minimize the risk. You need to commit yourself. For example, don't use the names, don't use the human face. If you are using a photographs to try to pad the face, you should not reveal the identity. So that's the way you can able to reduce the risk of the participants. So beneficency, it requires a commitment to minimize the risk associated with research, including psychological and social risk, and maximizing the benefits that accrue to the research participants. Third one, justice. So justice require a commitment to ensure a fair distribution of the risk and benefit resulting from the research. So those who take part on the burden of the research participants should share in the benefit of knowledge gain. So you need to ensure your research participants they need to be you need to ensure a fair distribution of risk and benefits resulting from the research. Either risk or benefit you derive from the research supposed to be equally shared with your research participants. Even if you are gaining something in terms of knowledge, also if you are gaining means that needs to be shared with your participant. Not only benefit, the risk also supposed to be shared with the participants, and the knowledge also must be shared with your participants. Even if you are putting some budget for participation of the research, you need to distribute, or you need to practice that one equally. In addition to these three principles, there is another aspect is also there. In addition to this established principles, some ethicists have suggested to fourth principles, respect for community. So this also should be added, but it is not added in the Belmont report, but it needs to be added in the report in future also. So respect for community, it confers on the researchers an obligation to respect the values and interest of the community in research, wherever possible, to protect the community from the harm. It applies not just the respect for community, what it says, the principles for the research ethics, it is not just well, it also should incorporate the community. Sometimes most of the qualitative research is doing the community research. So when you are doing a community research, your community must be protected from the harm. Community must be protected from the harm. The beneficency must be practiced, justice must be practiced with the community, respect for the individuals, respect for the community also must be practiced with the community research. So this the three principles. It's an principles. How to practice these principles in your research. So one of the most important aspects in terms of practicing ethical principles, informed consents. So informed consents in qualitative research, informed consents are very much important. Informed consents is a mechanism for ensuring that people understand what it means to participate in a particular research study, so they can decide in a conscious, deliberate way whether they want to participate or not. So informed consent means you need to make sure. Informed consent is a mechanism. It's a mechanism for ensuring that people understand what it means to participate in a particular research trial or research study, so that they can decide in a conscious manner or deliberate way to whether they want to participate or not. You need to inform them what are all the consequences are there, in what level people are going to participate. Well in advance, if you are informing them, then they can able to decide themselves. So informed consent is one of the most important tool for ensuring respect for the people during the research. So how to practice respect for people means you need to make sure your research should carry informed consents. You need to at least you need to mention your informed consent statement in the beginning of the research. Or if you are doing any exercise, you need to mention, you need to explain the purpose of the research. So you need to begin, you need to give an introduction about your research. That's the way you need to begin your exercise or your research. Or you can give as a written statement. That's what that point is emphasizing. So individual informed consents may be in a written or oral form. Either you can give as a written statement or you can do oral form of interactions. So how do we achieve informed consents in qualitative research? So informed consents primarily as a form that describes in detail what the research is about. It includes risk and benefit, which generally goes through the ethical committee approval procedure, including legislative language, and is signed by the participants and is signed by the participants, the researcher, and possibly a witness. So, informed consent is a form. This form is describing a detail about your research, risk and benefit. If you are generating from the research, also should be incorporated in that research, in that informed consent paper. Then this informed consent paper prepared through ethical committee approval. So once you prepare the paper, then you are going to submit the informed consent papers, informed consent forms to the ethical committee. Ethical committee needs to give approval for that form before conducting a research. This form supposed to be the local language, so the legalistic language, it should be there, and it's supposed to be signed by the participant, researcher, and a witness. So if especially in biomedical research, this form is very much important. If you are applying for a research in your institutional review board, this is very much important. Without getting approval, along with your research proposal, informed consent form is also should attach. Otherwise, the research is not going to be allowed. So in some situations, it may be necessary to obtain a formal permission from the community leaders or a gatekeeper before research can begin using qualitative tools such as in-depth interview and focus group discussions. If you are doing in a community research, it is not possible to go with informed consent papers because you are doing in a group. So it is not possible to go with the individual to individual. So it's better to explain the purpose of your research to the community leaders to get consensus from them, because once you giving information about your research to the community leader or gatekeeper, they can able to pass the information to the community. If you are organizing a meeting, you are informing them, you are informing them about your research. Then they can able to, before starting the exercise, they can able to come and say, they met me yesterday, they explained these things. When you can give answer, you can participate. It will give this research is important for our community. They can able to vouch for your research. If you are in community kind of situations, they can able to facilitate. So the informed consent should carry the following informations. For example, it needs to explain the purpose of the research. Then what is expected of a research participants. It includes amount of time likely to be required for the participants. It needs to explain the purpose. It needs to explain what exactly expected from the participants. It includes mentioning the timing, how much time it will take. For example, if you are giving in a questionnaire, you need to mention when you are filling this question, it will take another half an hour time or 45 minutes time. Or if you are conducting an focus group discussions, you are going to say this meeting is going to be done another 1 hour time or 1.5 hour time. You need to be well informed. So you need to explain the expected risk benefits, including psychological and social risk. You need to explain. Then the participation requesting the participation is voluntary. One can withdraw at any time with no negative repercussions. So you need to mentioning participation is voluntary. If you are paying, you need to mention that also. If it is voluntary, you can inform voluntary. If you are paying, you need to mention that one. Then you can inform them at any time you are allowed to go out, or you are not. If you don't want willing to participate, you can just leave. So that kind of freedom you need to give. Then the how you are going to maintain the confidentiality, that also need to clearly indicated in your informed consents. Then the name and contact information of the local lead investigator to be contacted for questions and problems related to the researcher. If you are finishing your research, you need to leave some detail about you, not just collecting data. You need to give some. If people are having questions, they need to contact you. Maybe if any issues coming, they need to get help from the researcher. So you need to leave the contact detail of local investigators. Then the name and contact information of an appropriate person to contact with the questions about one's right as a research participants. Not just leaving the data collectors contact detail. You also need to give the person who are doing research also need to be informed to the participants for future reference. There are two questions for discussions. One is discuss some ethical issues you think could be arise during qualitative research. Then the second one, you need to illustrate the informed consent statement. You need to write an informed consent statement for your future research. These are all the two questions for this session. Thank you. Do you have any questions? We can take questions now. We have 3 minutes. We can take questions. Megasa, you are the only one.
Okay. I don't have books.
Okay. Then we will end the session. Another 10 minutes time, we will start the new one.
Okay.
Okay. In between, you can ask Tikele. Tikele is also coming. You can ask both Liben and Tikele to participate the next sessions. Another 10 to 15 minutes time.
Okay. After 10 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.